Welcome back, ladies and gents. Now, in this next video, we're going to start looking at something called selection. So previously, we've been creating sequences in Python. Now, a sequence is quite simply one line of code following another. That's what a sequence is. It's one thing and then the next thing. So in this example here, we've got a simple print statement in line 1, which will display the message. That's what print means. Hello world. And just a reminder that we put it into speech marks because this is just text. We want to say to Python, this here, it's not in code, just read it as text. So it will display the message, hello world. Okay. And in line 2, we're creating a new variable. Remember, this is like a little storage container. And in this particular storage container, we're going to also assign it a second string called Mr. Smith. Now, if we press run at the moment, it should display the message, hello world. There we go. But it doesn't do anything with our variable user yet because we haven't actually told it what to do with it. Okay, it's just there like a little memory in the background that has this data stored next to it, but we haven't told Python what to do with it yet. So we can say, for example, now print, let's say print user, and for a reminder, we always refer to the variable name and not its contents. So now it should say hello world, Mr. Smith, and there we go. Now we can mix strings with variables. Okay, by that I mean if you want to say or display a generic message that says good morning and then whatever this username is. So we can again use speech marks to create our variable. Say good morning to you, and then we need to separate our string and our variable here with a comma. Okay, so if we run it a third time, now it says good morning to you, Mr. Smith. Now our sequence does the first line, then the second line, then the third line. It's very linear. Okay, it does one thing and the next. But sometimes we might not want it to follow in a straight line. We might want to do one thing if a certain thing is true, or do something else in another case. Okay, for example, we might want to say if the name is Charles, we might let's make the message say good morning, Your Majesty, because it's the king. And if it's any other name, we can get it to respond differently. Now we do that by creating the if statement. Okay, so the if is the first part of what we call selection. Okay, so only if this is true, then it will do the next bit. So we start our if statement, and we'll say if, and we want to compare whatever this variable here is with something that we dictate. So we say if user is equal to, and now to equal to we need a double equals, and then we're going to compare it to a string and say Charles. So if this is the same as that, then do something else. Okay, and in fact let's change this here from a string. Let's say we want the user to be able to actually type into the program, so we'll change that, swap that for an input, and remember our brackets. Okay, so here the user can now interact with the program. So if the user is equal to Charles, i.e. if whatever the user types in here is the same as this, then do something else. Okay, so we need a colon next. Now when I press enter, watch what happens. See how the cursor starts here, it's halfway in. Now we call this an indent. An indent is just a fancy way of saying a space. That's all it is. Okay, so saying if this thing is true, if the username is equal to Charles, let's say print good morning, Your Majesty. Okay, so let's test it here. So let's type in here Charles. So Charles will be stored in this variable, and in line 5 it's going to compare it to our string. So coming back to our program, we press enter, and now because that is true, it's then run line 3 in our sequence, but it's done almost like a little test here in line 5, and because it is true, it's printed the message, good morning, Your Majesty. If we try an alternative one, let's run it again. Let's say Daniel. Oh. Now press enter, and it's going to say, is Daniel equal to Charles? And no, it's not. So actually, it'll still read the code, but because this statement here isn't true, it doesn't progress to line 6. It just skips it altogether. Okay. Now, what we can do as well is actually say, well, if this isn't true, then do something else. Okay, and we do that by using the else statement. Think of else as being a bit like otherwise or if not. So for any other name that's not Charles, we can say do this thing instead. So again, we have an else statement and then with our colon, and we'll say nice to meet you.